Hi folks, it's Matt Gemmell here. This is not a woodworking video, just want to talk a wee bit about one of the key elements of my workflow here in my office at home as a writer. I work on the iPad Pro full time. I do have an external monitor, but I virtually never use it. I just like the focus of the iPad experience with pretty much just one app on the screen at a time, because I'm typically just working intensively in a single place. Indeed, a lot of the time I'm not even really sitting down when I'm working. I'm coming back to the keyboard or the screen and then getting up and pacing around here, having a think about things. The thinking is, of course, the real work in almost any profession, I think, certainly not just writing. That's not to say, though, that you don't benefit from having an additional space away from the screen to help you do your thinking and jot things down. And previously for me that would always be pen and paper, but then you've got the issue of editability, you've got the issue of you're consuming resources, and the pens run out and you need more paper, and then you've got to recycle the paper or scan it in, do OCR text recognition, capture, all that kind of stuff, which is all readily doable, particularly these days, but it adds a little bit of friction at the end of the thinking process, even though that natural pen and paper type of input is definitely the most conducive to quality thought. But there's a halfway house, there's a compromise, which is getting better and better and better all the time, and that is, of course, e-ink or e-paper tablets. I've had a few of these. I've had the Kindle Scribe, which is fabulous. It's certainly the best reader at that size, although the note-taking features are a bit anemic and it really doesn't have much else beyond that. It's a Kindle with a notepad feature attached to it. If I had to, describe its kind of like market position, there are many other specialized e-ink devices that are built pretty much from the ground up for note taking and note organizing and study and so on. The three really big players would have to be Supernote from Rata. There's the Remarkable 2 at the moment, and of course there's the huge stream of Boox, Boox devices. And I've got a couple of the Boox devices. I had a Note Air 3 towards the beginning of this year. That's not the 3C, so the monochrome one, which had a Carta screen, but only 227 ppi. It's amazing what we think of as old technology these days. Everything's just so incredible. It used to be that black and white, monochromatic Carta 1200, I think, e-ink tablets were limited to the Kindle Scribe. I think Amazon had an exclusivity agreement with the e-paper manufacturer, but not so. And Boox, the company, has just brought out their new black and white 300 dpi, like the Kindle Scribe tablet. But it's not the Kindle they're going after, it's the Remarkable 2. The Remarkable 2 is a device that is extremely well thought of, fabulous UI, great flow. Certainly Remarkable and Supernote are the joint kings, I think, of the distraction-free and paper-focused experience. Boox being a set of Android tablets, they tend to be much more full-featured. They have web browsers and Google Play Store and so on. Endless customization. But because of that, the overall user experience can be a bit disjointed and can be menu heavy and options heavy. So, there's adaptations to be made either way. But Boox is very much, with this new device, going after the Remarkable crowd, so much so that the device very much physically resembles Remarkable 2, and to me that's a huge attractor, because it was really only the pretty high cost and the aging hardware of the Remarkable 2 that stopped me going in that direction in the first place. So now there is very much that wonderful intersection of a brand new device, 300 DPI, no front light, so the display is very, very, very close, within like half a mil of the writing surface, the textured surface, and that beautiful, almost invisible bezel paper pad like look. This is the Boox Go 10.3, and it's just gorgeous. It's essentially the same appearance as a Remarkable 2. On the Remarkable 2, this piece of extra bezel, this side strip, is a dark colour, I think pretty dark grey, whereas theirs is white, but they've got that same sort of screen surrounding bezel that they've tried to match to the background colour of the e-ink. Another thing I absolutely love about the Boox devices and the Remarkable 2 is that you can set them so that when they're in their sleep mode, as this is, they just keep the screen the same rather than moving it to a screensaver. They're obviously privacy concerns if you're leaving this in a communal environment and you've got something sensitive on the screen. But Android, unlike Apple, wisely or otherwise, takes the approach that, you're a big boy or big girl, you can choose for yourself, rather than us forcing something on you. That's the dog groaning as he lies down to sleep beside me, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It's incredibly thin. I sound like a Tim Cook or Steve Jobs keynote now. It's thinner than the Remarkable by something like 0.1 of a millimetre, just so that they can claim it's the thinnest in the world, which it is at the moment, and it's incredibly light. I mean, it's ridiculously light, way lighter than any iPad. Could hold this thing for hours. Magnetic pen, it's an EMR stylus like all these devices, Wacom's electromagnetic resonance technology, so there's no battery, there's no charging, obviously, there's no pairing or anything. It's just, there's a field produced by the screen, and when this thing gets close to it, it's detectable by the device. So you can use any EMR stylus, the ones from the Remarkable, the Supernote, any of the other manufacturers, loads of third-party ones. I've got one from Statler in that classic style with a eraser that works as well. It says actually made of painted wood, with the tech in the middle of it. You can use all of them. But it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's so conducive to thinking and focusing. Just going and sitting somewhere with this and scribbling away. I mean, you can split the screen in either orientation, bring up a book or a document or whatever as you annotate. You can either annotate directly or bring up a notebook beside it in split screen. You can screencast this to any browser on the same network. USB-C for charging, plus headphones if you're using an adapter for it. It's Bluetooth, obviously. The speakers, there's a microphone, voice conversion, handwriting conversion, everything you could possibly want. Indeed, too much stuff sometimes. You need to stop yourself using it, but you can just pare it down to be this simple thing, even getting rid of all the toolbars and other gubbins. That does give you that full-featured annotating and page organizing and studying, whatever it is. But you can take it down to just a simple sketch pad kind of thing, and it's just so beautiful. I see this on my desk and it just gives me happiness. That wonderful, clean, analog, almost sort of like faux analog feeling of freedom and lack of stress and lack of tension, headache, and lack of peering at this little backlit digital void. Even something as beautiful as an iPad can feel constraining. You feel the boundaries of the screen, whereas this just feels like something that sits in the world around you, and you can, do whatever you need to do on it. Make those little scrappy lists that I find are far more useful than the really intentional and edited and artistic and refined kind of style of notes. What's most useful to me are the instantaneous kind of combustible, if you like, little sketches and scribbles in the moment. And these ones are all actually fairly organised. This is my woodworking journal to help me design stuff, but it's just that sort of pad of paper beside the keyboard that you can quickly batter something down and scribble through it. And I mean, this thing, it's got all they call it AI these days, just because everything that remotely has to do with machine learning or any kind of smart heuristic or algorithm has to be called AI for marketing purposes. But it's got the scribble through to delete, and it's got circle to highlight, to select, and then to move, and it's got shape perfecting. If you hold down at the end of drawing a shape, that'll turn into something properly geometric rather than hand drawn, and for arrows and so on. And you can select things and turn them into tags that are searchable or links to other pages or notebooks, indeed, or other documents or hyperlinks. It's got all this smart stuff, so you can make this as detailed and as managed and orchestrated and organized a notebook as you wish. It can be research, it can be study, it can be whatever, but it can also be that essential pad of pseudo paper sitting in your desk, which is why it's so incredibly useful. And my God, look at the style of the thing, and just the thinness and the lightness. I do admire those things from a techno-lust enthusiastic kind of point of view, but also they just take away all these little bits of friction. I mean, if I was buying a notepad of paper of this size, it's called the 10.3 obviously because of the diagonal dimension of the screen in inches. The notepad would be thicker than this, and it's getting to the point where the thicker notepad of paper that you buy would be virtually the same weight. A pen would be a bit heavier than this. I mean, the tech is incredibly light, and it would not have this beauty, this elementality, this slight, the texture and the coldness and warmth in the hand, and of course the editability, the backup to the cloud, the automatic recognition of handwriting, if you like. You can type and format, and it's just everything that you would think was a thing that would be really nice to have occasionally, even if you were using a paper pad. It's got all of it just sitting there. That screen flash was it going into lock mode. I've chosen not to alter or annotate the screen in any way when it's in lock mode, like a real pad of paper. It's always there and readable. But you can, of course, you can do whatever you want. It's Android. You can customize it. It's just such a beautiful thing, and it's massively helpful when you're thinking through complex things that have got a lot of little moving parts, like plots and story arcs, and sketching out characters, sketching in the figurative sense there, or sketching in the more literal sense to block out a scene and some movement. Even playing with graphic ideas, book covers. I used this recently for a blurb, the back jacket marketing copy, and it's incredibly useful for that. Just putting down a word cloud of stuff and pulling it together and scribbling stuff out and moving it around and just sculpting out of a mass of words and phrases, something that gradually becomes more and more coherent. And it's easy to keep different versions and shove the front cover like jacket artwork in beside you, so you're constantly kind of feeding off the vibe of it. You can do all that stuff, and these things just last forever, as long as you take good care of them. What I mean by last forever is that, notwithstanding obviously security patches, there's really not very much to update. They add features, of course, and they update the operating system a bit, but if you just never connected it to Wi-Fi and never updated it again, it's a pad of paper, really. What do you really need to change about it? It doesn't decay in the way that these incredibly complex, always internet connected devices that our computers and phones and tablets are now. They do. They kind of rot because the ecosystem and infrastructure around them is in a constant state of furious change and evolution. Whereas this is, if you choose to use it that way, it's a pad of paper sitting on your desk. You could never even tag it onto your Wi-Fi, and you've got the vast majority of its functionality intact. And of course, the other killer feature, you almost never have to charge it. It will last easily a week, 10 days, 2 weeks of decent use during the day, in the context of it being a notepad and a book reader and an annotator. It lasts for ages and ages and ages. No way are you going to have to do this insane daily or nightly charging. You would have to with a tablet, an LCD or OLEDs, as it is now, a tablet computer device. And that is liberating as well, because you don't need to bring a charger. It's just USB-C, so you're going to have one around anyway. But it's just it's a liberating thing in every respect. You don't need to buy a hugely expensive toy like this. I mean, this is in the $350 to £400 or dollars or whatever kind of bracket. But even if you don't go for the sort of high-tech, gorgeous, sweet solution like this, I very much advocate having pencil and paper, pen and paper, ballpoint's always my favourite, beside you, to have that, not that second screen, but that second surface for thinking, for just getting stuff out into the physical world without having to contextualize it as typing, or feel that you're interacting with the production surface that is your device screen or your computer monitor. It's a distinction that seems maybe arbitrary, or at least subtle, until you start doing it regularly, and then it becomes so stark. Having just a single place of focus, even if that place is 3 or 4 monitors all connected to a computer, is constraining. It's constraining in a way that's nothing to do with the pixel dimensions that you have available to you. It's constraining because it's in this digital realm that has its own particular demands and rules and its role, and it is the roughness and the imperfection and the analog quality, indeed the ephemerality of just writing surfaces, that makes them liberating. It is that kind of blank page, zero consequence, and the fact that you're kind of doing it away from the keyboard, even if it's adjacent to your keyboard, that just opens up a gate somewhere. And it just seems so conducive to having ideas, and more importantly, gaining clarity on ideas. This is the best expression of that concept as a device that I have so far found, and it certainly helps. It's bloody gorgeous. I can highly recommend these things to you. Find a way to do your thinking outside of the computer, and in that context, iPads and so on definitely count as computers rather than as the second thing, as much as they try to fulfill both roles. There is some elder magic in the pencil on paper, scratchy, simple black and white interface, be that with actual ink and tree paper or a fancy piece of technology that approximates and enhances it. Give it a try. I think you will find, as I repeatedly and daily have, that it just makes you a better thinker. There you go. Thanks for watching this as ever, and I shall see you in the next one. Take care.